Okay, so now we've selected both the mother and the father rose. The mother we selected because it's very fragrant, pretty flower, and the father we selected because we want to increase the disease resistance of this rose. These are the three flowers that we're going to be emasculating the pollen from. And next we'll show you how we take the pollen off the flower. Okay, we've selected our father here. Really critical when you're collecting a pollen is the stage that the pollen is at. This flower that we have to the left here is a little bit too tight. So if we try to force this open to get the pollen, we'll end up knocking most of the pollen off, and the pollen also won't release properly. This flower is fully open, and you can see the pollen is beginning to dry up in there. So if we were to pull this off, we wouldn't get any viable pollen for the female. This one is at the correct stage. The bloom is about halfway open. We can force this open a little bit more so we can get the pollen out of the plant. So we'll just strip these few petals off here. There we go. And that is the pollen off the plant right there. We're going to put it into our cup down below. Usually what I do is I strip several flowers at a time so that we have enough pollen in our cup. So I'm going to do this. We wait, you can see the pollen is now down in here. That will take about a day, and we'll shake the cup around, and after sitting about a day you'll see the little bit of the dust, the pollen on the bottom of the cup. So with hybridizing a rose, timing is everything. Here we are 1 day later, the pollen is beginning to shed in the cup so that it's viable, and now we need to prepare the mother plant so that we can apply the pollen. First thing we'll need to do is make sure the flower's at the stage of prep, which is about halfway open. So I'll bring you in closer now and show you how we'll prepare the mother. So we have the mother ready to emasculate, and we do that by stripping off all the outer and inner petals. And the only thing that we're leaving now is going to be basically the female part of the plant. So we strip the petals off like this, and you'll see there's the pollen on there that we collected from the previous flower, but in this case we don't want this flower to pollinate itself, so we need to strip all of the pollen off. After we've done that, we'll wait about another 8 hours until the mother is ready to be pollinated. So we waited about another 8 hours. The mother is now going to be more receptive to the pollen. We put a little bit of the pollen on the end of our finger and just brush it over the top of the plant, just like that. Usually I'll do this 2 times. Once after about an 8 hour period, then I'll wait 1 more day and I'll brush more pollen on the plant again. So here we are 24 hours later. Labeling is really important. Some breeders will go through and pollinate many different flowers with different pollen. If you have a smaller breeding program, it's often easier to make one mother with one father, and we use one label so that we know that this plant has all been pollinated with the same rose. After 24 hours, we like to go back again and pollinate the flower. So this will be its final pollination, and we'll do the same thing that we did yesterday. So after we've made our cross, we wait a few months for the hip to form. This is the hip forming on the plant here. Typically the time to harvest it is when the hip starts to turn orange. That would be in the fall. We're not at the fall yet, but we want to show you how to take the seeds out. So we will harvest this hip and then we'll process the seeds. Okay, so we've harvested our hip. Typically, again, we'll be waiting till this hip turns bright orange, which would be the fall. But for the purpose of the video, we're taking it a little bit early. We cut off the tail of the hip, we flip it over, cut off the front portion of it, and the seeds that we're going after are inside. So we're going to cut this hip right in half, and we'll look inside. We can see the seeds are white. If we had done this in the fall, those seeds would have already started to pick up a little bit of brownish or even an orangish coloring inside there. We'll use our knife again like this, and then we pop the seeds out just like this, right onto the table. The average hip depending on the rows, will supply you with anywhere from 3 seeds, maybe to 30 or 40 seeds. Usually I find the average one is around a dozen seeds or more. Okay, we have our seed ready for planting here. Remember, rose seeds have to be stratified. That is, they have to think they've gone through a winter. If you live in a mild climate, you'll harvest your seeds in the fall, wrap them in damp paper towel, put them in a plastic bag, and in the bottom of your refrigerator for about 6 weeks. After that, you'll be planting them. In my climate, we don't heat the greenhouses, so we can take these seeds in the fall, sprinkle them in our soil right away, and we don't worry about using sterilized soil because we want any of the hybrids that germinate to be tough from day one. So we will sprinkle them in the soil, we'll add another 1/4 inch of soil on top of them, and we'll put them in a cold greenhouse that doesn't freeze solid, but it still has fluctuating typical winter temperatures, which would be similar to being in a fridge. After anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks, they'll begin to germinate. Welcome to the seedling field. This is one of the seedlings we selected from the greenhouse we were working in. This happens to be